This rugged looking new version of the Nissan X Trail could be the pick of the range. There are two different versions available of the N-Trek, which is this one here, and I'm going to tell you about it in this review, tell you what's good about it, what could be better, and the best alternatives to it as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell, and let's get to it. The N-Trek name has been used before across a number of Nissan models, and it's now been applied to the X Trail range, and there are two different versions of the N-Trek available in Australia. You can choose it as a 5-seat two-wheel drive, so front-wheel drive SUV, or you can have it with 7 seats and all-wheel drive. Now that seems to be a pretty good option in my opinion because, well, the value for money equation is pretty good. It's only $3 more than the front wheel drive 5-seater, so it could be a really good way to spend just a little bit extra to get a fair bit more practicality. Now, in terms of what changes compared to the other versions of the X Trail, let's go through some of those details. It's got LED lights at the front, just like the regular versions, but it does have a set of LED front fog lights with a revised front bumper. There's different looking rugged alloy wheels, which are 18 inches in size. You also get some different finishes on the outside, like dark finish exterior trim around the grille, the lower front bumper, the mirrors, the door handles, and the roof rails. And inside there's a new water-resistant synthetic leather upholstery trim, as well as a 12.3-inch touchscreen media system, a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, and a 10.8-inch head-up display. So it does seem to have lots and lots of tech and spec for the money, and I'll tell you about the safety stuff that it has as standard as well later on in this review. But let's talk about some alternatives, because yeah, there's some really good ones. My go-to guy in the mid-size SUV segment still is the Toyota RAV4. It's available with hybrid, with two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but it is only a 5-seater. So if that is what you are looking for, it will tick the box, but if you need 7 seats, it won't, obviously. Now, I think that it does have some serious credentials, that RAV4. It is a super popular model, it's ridiculously fuel efficient, and there's an Edge version which looks a bit more rugged like this, if that's what tickles your fancy. Another option, if you're looking for a rugged and pretty capable vehicle about this size, is the Subaru Outback. It's a really great option for those who want a wagon style body rather than a slightly higher riding SUV, but it does have all-wheel drive as standard and 5 seats too. Again, no 7-seat option there, but it does have a turbocharged petrol engine or a non-turbo if you want to save a bit of money, and you'll still get a pretty good drive experience in my opinion. And finally, if you are looking for a 7-seater specifically and you want something that is superb to drive and really practical, you should go and check out the Hyundai Santa Fe. I know that opinions are divided in terms of the styling of the Santa Fe, but I think it's a really great looking thing personally. It's got a fantastic interior, lots of practicality. There's hybrid versions with front or all-wheel drive and 7 seats as standard, or if you want, you can choose the new turbocharged petrol model, which lowers the price down a little bit. But you'll find some links below in the description for alternatives to the Nissan X Trail, including my review of the Nissan X Trail e-Power, which is interesting in its own right. The N-Trek versions of the X Trail do have some extra features to make it look a bit more rough and tumble. This revised front bumper really looks quite good, I reckon, pretty macho. It's got integrated LED fog lights down there as well. Of course, you've still got the LED daytime running lights and headlights. And these 18-inch alloy wheels, I think they've borrowed some inspiration from the Subaru Crosstrek playbook, in my opinion. They look pretty good. They're pretty rough and tumble looking. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you do get the black finishes on the door handles and on the roof rails as well. Still a bit of chrome here and there, but also the rear bumper looks a little different too. I think it looks pretty smart. And this one here is the 7-seat all-wheel drive. So let's have a look in the boot. You don't have an electric tailgate. I don't think that really matters that much, but you do have a pretty practical amount of space. Now, as you can see, the rear seats are folded down. I've got the cargo cover in place, and you can see the figure on your screen now for the 7-seat models with the seats down. I'll also put the figure in there for 5-seat versions of this SUV. Now, I'm gonna have to pull this cargo cover out to show you what it looks like when the 7 seats are in place. So just give me a sec. Before we get to what the space is like with those seats up, I just want to show you underneath here, there is a sort of partition, so you could basically secure things in place behind those seats if you want to. And underneath there is a space saver spare wheel, which is great to see for a family SUV like this. even though it does require some serious decombobulation of the back end of this vehicle to get that spare out. But let's have a look at these seats up to give you an idea of how much space you're going to have to play with. It is relatively modest in terms of the third row space behind those rear seats. Those headrests do go up a long way, like those in the third row will have their heads basically underneath the rear glass, so just don't put anyone too tall in the back. And there's something I need to show you about that when you are running this as a family car, but we'll get to that when we get to the interior part of this review, which is coming up next. Okay, so this is the interior of the X Trail N-Trek, and if you can hear a slight noise in the background, that's because the engine's running. It's pretty hot outside, so I've kept the aircon on for this one. Now, let me show you what's changed primarily. So you've got this new water-resistant material on the seats, and it is a very synthetic feeling finish, but it also has a bit of grip to it, and I think that that's a nice thing. So if you're an adventurer, or maybe you just go to the pool a lot, that could be a really nice thing to have in your life. There's soft finishes where there should be as well, including on the door elbow pads and on this center elbow pad as well. You even get soft bits up on the dashboard too, and there is a brown trim finish up there. It doesn't really show in the camera, but it is a fairly brown tinge. Might not be to everyone's taste, and nor might this wood finished plastic trim finish here. So I mean, there's some interesting design elements, and the chrome trim line as well. Yeah, look, it's trying to meet a lot of targets and maybe doesn't have the same sort of focus as some other interiors in this segment, but I do think that it does offer some interesting talking points when it comes to the design. And this particular N-Trek model does get the 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster in front of the driver, which is a really nice thing to have because it just makes for an easy to interact with experience for the most part. There are some things like if you have your cruise control engaged, you might find that your digital speedo disappears, and that might be a little bit annoying. You've still got a digital speedo there. You've also got a head-up display up there as well. So those concerns are allayed essentially. It's got a nice steering wheel design as well. Your cruise control will be that one there, the blue surroundy one, which is indicating that it's got adaptive cruise control with lane keeping and so forth. And you've also got some controls here that you can interact with that screen and media as well. There are paddle shifters on this wheel. I don't know whether you'd ever really need to take matters into your own hands. And it's got your wipers on this side, your blinkers and lights are on that stalk. There's a few more buttons down there as well, including your head-up display adjustments and a steering wheel button for steering stuff. Yeah, we'll get to that in the driving bit. Now, let's talk more about this screen over here. It's a 12.3-inch unit as well, and it has built-in sat-nav. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is great. It's a pretty simple system to get your head around for the most part, I would say. But yeah, sometimes the responsiveness is a little laggy. And I do find that the menus on the main screen, well, you can get used to them pretty quickly, but there's some dead space here and it doesn't really make sense to me. Sometimes it just does that where it doesn't do any more than what you're asking it to. Your settings menu is a bit too small. I reckon it should be its own dedicated icon, a bit more prominent, but you can jump in here and do some of the adjustments to your screen. I'm not going to spend hours on the screen because you'll get to know it and whether you like it or not. But just be aware that you do have this piano black finish down here on some of the controls. And when you have the light on that piano black, it really does sort of give you that I can't see what those buttons are effect. And also that can reflect into your eyes in some situations as well. So that's not great, but at least you got a volume knob. And down below you do have your air conditioning controls, dual zone climate control with a fan button as well to adjust things. And you can adjust the direction of where the air is going. You've got heated seats as well for this spec. All that is great to see. Below that climate control section, you will find that you've got a USB-C and a USB-A port. That's where your starter button is for the car. Here, there is a tray for your phone, but it's not a wireless phone charger. That sucks, I reckon. There should be a wireless charger there. And you get bottle holders here. Yes, they are big enough for 600ml bottles or coffee cups. Just be mindful if you have a smaller coffee, you might find that it might not fit in there very well. Here is your dial selector for your drive modes. If you want to go off-roading, you've got a couple of off-road drive modes there, as you can see. I've just obviously been trying to leave it in auto as much as possible because I haven't been doing off-roading for this. And there's also a hill descent mode button, which you can see that little orange flashy light there. That's that button there. So if you are worried about a descent that you're facing, you can just hit that and it will try and regulate your speed for you. It's got a stubby little shifter. You get used to that with a park button on top, and you've got an electronic park brake auto hold as well, so it can keep things held up in place when you're at a standstill. And down below there's a nice big storage tray as well, with a nice hat tip to Nissan's history down there as well. And yeah, plenty of storage down there. Between the seats, as I said, you get this covered center console bin with nice padding, and there's a bit of space in there to make use of too. So the front seat experience, I reckon, is pretty good, and I think that it feels pretty plush, but there's a couple other things I want to call out. These visors are quite narrow. So for instance, if you put it over there and you want to get the sun out of your eyes on the side, that's doing bloody nothing, next to nothing, and you can't pull them out either. That is something that might piss you off on country road drives. There's illuminated vanity mirrors, so you can show up looking fancy. You've got a sunglasses holder as well. No emergency services button up here. So some other vehicles that are out now have connected services, so they're always online and they can call in the event of an accident. This car doesn't have that, but it does have an auto dimming rear vision mirror. And I think that, yeah, the interior, pretty nice from the front seat perspective, but let's jump in the second row and see what it is like. Position at 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall, and yeah, you can see I've got a fair amount of space back here. I can slide my Jordans in underneath there, and I've got, yeah, plenty of knee room as well. Now I can slide this seat forward if I need to allow more space for those in the third row, but we'll get to the third row space in a minute. Let's just talk about some of the amenities back here. You've got map pockets on the seat backs. Down here there are directional air vents. No climate control for this back section though. You do get USB ports there as well for charging up, and there is a slight tunnel intrusion, but you can basically fit 3 people across the back here without too much hassle. My daughter's seat is there, and you'll notice that there are standard sun blinds built into these windows. That is a huge plus for parents, and according to my 3.5-year-old, that pattern is very pretty. Now, so yes, you've got ISOFIX points in the window seats, top tethers for all 3 positions in this second row, and there are some things we need to talk about when it comes to the space here. So just need to pull this little section down, just bear with me. So yes, you do have a flip down cup holder section. You could put a device in there as well if you wanted to, but it means that this back seat section is basically not usable anymore, and that's a bit of a hefty thing to pull into place. So kiddos might struggle with that, but at least you've got that option if you want it. I think that the second row space is actually pretty good, but let's check out what it's like in the very back, because yeah, there are 2 seats back there as I showed you before. I'm going to show you the access of that area right now, live. So here we go. This seat belt, I can just push that away so it's not a trip hazard. Pull this seat forward and slide like so. Geez, that made a bit of a noise. And yeah, those with bigger feet might find that it is a little bit of a hassle to get through there, and that doesn't necessarily stay stuck in its position. But let's go in. And we're going to see straight away that there's not a whole lot of space back here, and that will be a consideration for some families. I mean, don't think of this as a purpose-built 7-seater. It is more of a 5+2 kind of car. Bonus seats for little kids maybe. Let me show you here, if I straighten myself up, how much space I can possibly live with. Just give me a sec. So that is knees hard against the seat ahead, and as you can see, I would struggle to fit in front of myself. So 3 6-footers in a row is not going to be the go, but who was going to do that with their 7-seat X Trail anyway? Buy a Pathfinder if you need to fit 3 6-footers in a row. Yeah, headspace is limited. And the other thing I was going to tell you about is that the top tether point for this middle seat is here. So if you are planning to have kids or anyone in the very back of this vehicle, it might be a little bit of a concern that you've got a strap there if you do have someone sitting in a child seat in this position. But like I said, this is not a purpose-built 7-seater, so just keep that in mind. Maybe the 5-seat one will be better for you. And in the very back here, you don't have very much in terms of amenities. There are no vents. You do have a light. I don't know if that really matters or not, but you've also got a set of cup holders on the sides and another set over here, but no ventilation. And yeah, it's a little bit tight, I gotta say. But let's see, can you adjust these forwards so you can have less of a recline if you want? Yes, you can, or you can recline them back and just, again, watch your head. It's pretty tight back here. So yeah, I think I've made it pretty clear. This is not the perfect 7-seater, but it might be a good 5+2 bonus car. Under the bonnet of the N-Trek versions of the Nissan X Trail is a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder non-turbocharged petrol engine. You'll see the outputs on your screen now. It does seem a little modest in terms of the grunt factor, but it comes as standard with a CVT automatic transmission, and it's front or all-wheel drive, as I mentioned earlier on. Now, you can get this vehicle with an e-Power hybrid model, which is a very different kind of hybrid. I've done a review of that model, and you can see it in the description below. There's a link down there so you can figure out whether the hybrid might be worth the extra money for you and your family's needs. And if you're wondering, I'm going to put up some towing capacity figures for you on the screen now, so you'll be able to figure out which version of the X Trail might better suit you. Right, let's go for a drive and see what it's like. Okay, so this is my first chance to drive a 7-seat version of the new generation X Trail. It seems like it's been so long for me to be able to get in here and do that. And just, can you see that glare on my eyes? That's what I was telling you about. There's the shiny shit here, just blinds you at times. It's terrible. Now, yeah, so back to the 7-seat thing. It is different drive experience to the 5-seater in my opinion. It feels a bit more settled. It's a bit heavier, so that's unsurprising that it does have a slightly different ride character to it. There's probably something to do with, as well, these wheels being maybe a touch heavier than the other models in the X Trail range, but generally, I have been relatively impressed with this drive experience compared to the 5-seater version which I drove, which did feel a bit too bouncy at the rear and just a little bit less settled on the road. So maybe the extra weight is helping out in terms of the drive experience with the N-Trek 7-seat all-wheel drive. Obviously, all-wheel drive adds weight too. So yeah, all of those in consideration of the drive experience, well, it's better in my opinion. I don't mind this. I really didn't like the 5-seat front-wheel drive version of this car, but this is an improvement in my opinion. So maybe it was just choosing the right spec that determined which one would be best. But yeah, I think that that is something you want to keep in mind. And look, ride comfort is not the biggest priority for a lot of people. I think that the bigger advantage of having all-wheel drive is just in those situations when you suddenly need it, you've got it. So if you find yourself on a loose surface, or if it's a heavy downpour, you will be less prone to having just the front tires spin up when you take away from a standstill, for instance. And yeah, you've got, you know, the potential for better grip and traction on unsealed surfaces because of the all-wheel drive system. So I think that if you need all-wheel drive, it's a straight up no-brainer. If you are thinking whether you should go for all-wheel drive and 7 seats or choose the 5-seat front-wheel drive and save $3,000, well, I'd be spending the $3,000. I reckon you'll get better resale value at the end as well. Now, what about this powertrain then? So it is the same 2.5 litre non-turbo petrol with the CVT, and you know, that's not my favorite combination. It's probably not yours either. And if you've never experienced a CVT, it's a continuously variable transmission. So it does behave a bit differently to a conventional gearbox. This transmission's not too bad. It gets away from a standstill okay. It's just that when you put your foot down, it just sort of makes a bit more noise rather than actually feeling like it's pushing you with a bit more shove, like some turbocharged options with better transmissions. But I think it's fairly livable for the most part, and it does have that synthesized stepped change thing, so it feels like there are gear shifts even though there aren't. And I think that the engine and transmission is going to be perfectly suited for a vehicle like this, unless you're going to put, you know, lots of people and lots of luggage on board. Then you might need to be mindful that it will feel probably a bit underpowered. But I think it's potentially, for a family with 3 or 4 occupants, going to be fine. Otherwise, I think generally the drive experience is pretty good. It's got honest brake pedal feel. It also has pretty good steering, so it's trustworthy, it's pretty accurate feeling, and you can basically judge what's going to happen next without having to think too much about it. And another great thing about it is that it doesn't have annoying safety tech. It's got the safety tech you would expect to keep you and your family potentially safer, but I think that the fact that it's not too pushy in terms of the lane keeping assistance, and it does have speed sign warning, and it just shows up a display rather than beeping and bonging at you incessantly like some other systems. Those do make a big difference to the livability factor with a vehicle like this. And there are some other cars, including some of the alternatives I mentioned, which can shit you a little bit more in terms of the annoyance factor from the safety systems. And there's no driver monitoring camera system in this car either, which you could think is a plus or a minus, but for me it's a big plus not to have it, because it means that it won't be constantly telling you that you're distracted by everything when you're just being a caring parent, for instance. So yeah, I think that generally, as I said, I'm more impressed with the 7-seat all-wheel drive X Trail than any other version I've driven, including the e-Power one. I thought it was good, but I wasn't impressed enough by the fuel consumption figure for that hybrid. But hey, that's a good segue. Let's talk fuel consumption now. Okay, so if you are thinking, yep, I'm ready for an X Trail, I'm thinking front wheel drive, well, I'll show you the figure for it on your screen now. That's the official combined cycle fuel consumption number, so what in theory you're able to achieve across a mix of driving. And now I'll show you the all-wheel drive figure as well. So yes, the all-wheel drive does have a slight penalty to pay. As I mentioned, it's heavier, it's got 7 seats, so that is something else you want to consider, but I think that that number is good if you can achieve it. Now, if you're wondering what I've achieved across my mix of driving, which has included daycare drop-offs, the usual sort of stuff I do, commuting to the shops, in and out of the city, all that sort of stuff, yeah, you'll see the number that I've seen on your screen now, and I was perfectly okay with that. I think that's acceptable for a petrol-powered SUV like this, and it doesn't need premium unleaded petrol either. You can run it on 91 RON regular, and the fuel tank capacity is not too bad as well. I mean, it's not the biggest fuel tank in the segment, but I think it's perfectly adequate for this kind of car. So yeah, drive experience in the N-Trek all-wheel drive 7-seater, for me, the most impressive X Trail I've driven, and probably the most livable as well. The Nissan X Trail achieved the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating a few years ago, and that's partly because it arrived in Australia a bit late. So the rating is old, the car isn't that old for our market, but it does have a heap of standard tech and spec for the money. Things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, there's adaptive cruise control, there's lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and there's a rear auto braking system as well for this vehicle. All versions come as standard with a reversing camera and rear parking sensors, but if you choose this one, you get a surround view camera and front parking sensors as well, which is really handy for urban parking scenarios. And there's plenty of airbags fitted to this vehicle as well. You get dual front, front side, a front center airbag, and curtain airbags as well. But just be mindful, those curtain airbags don't completely cover the third row occupants in terms of head protection. Did you know that Nissan now offers a 10-year, 300,000 kilometre conditional warranty? So if you service your vehicle with Nissan, well, that's what you'll get, a decade or 300,000 Ks of warranty. But if you don't, you get a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Now, the servicing is pretty good. You'll see the service intervals on your screen for this model, and also the service costs are capped for the first 5 visits. So that is good to see, and they're not bad in terms of the pricing as well. If you do service with Nissan, you'll get up to 10 years of roadside assistance included too. So lots of deal sweeteners there. Plus the brand also offers a guaranteed future value program. So if you go through their finance offering, well, you can guarantee the resale of your car as well. Not bad. I reckon this version of the Nissan X Trail is probably the best one I've tested. It's got 7 seats, it's got all-wheel drive, it looks a little more butch than the standard versions, and I really like that interior trim as well. So, do you think this is the X Trail for you, or would you choose one of the alternatives I mentioned earlier on? I'd love to know your thoughts. If you already own this generation X Trail, please let me know how it's going in terms of the ownership experience. I'd love to hear from you, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell. It does help a lot. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.